All right, see you then. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Family engagement report.
Mrs. Minor and Mrs. Alekna here. And there is a handout in your, on the board agenda.
Good evening. I'm Brandy Miner. I'm the associate principal and also for AFE and the family engagement coordinator for the district, working with our WISB stipend. So the next slide, you should recognize this. This is our district pillars, and they are the student foundation, staff foundations, teaching and learning, and financial and operations, community engagement. With those pillars, one of the belief statements is we believe collaboration among students, staff, families, and communities is essential for learning, and without that, we couldn't do any of those pillars. So kind of keeping that in our forefront while we're going through this. So our family engagement committee is actually one of the things, we brought that committee together because of the WISB stipend. This is the third year we have this $8,000 extra that we can use and focus our attention on family engagement. There are some requirements related to this $8,000 and how it can be used. We use it through our home visits, for trainings, and actually paying our teachers to go on home visits, professional opportunities, professional development opportunities, community committee work, for which we'll talk about in a little bit, and our family focus groups. And like I said, this is our third year that we've received these funds. Last year, we pretty much spent exactly $8,000. We also get 2 WISB support staff members that attend every single committee meeting if they come in person or virtually, and they have really helped guide us in some of the processes through those committee work. I'm going to hand this over to Ms. Alekna.
Hi, I'm Tammy Alekna. I'm a special ed teacher at the middle school. I am on the engagement committee and on the family home group committee. First, there really are 2 groups. I'm first going to talk to you about the home visit group. And we have some goals. The main goal, one of the goals is to create trust between families and the schools. Building that trust really helps improve the educational experience for the students, for the families, and for the schools. It helps share a shared understanding. I know I personally went on a home visit with one expectation of how this family lived, and you get there and it's a different picture of what you have in your mind. So it gives you a little bit more information about what this student is bringing to school when they come. And it helps you find ways to interact with the family and help the family a little bit more. It shows that the teachers really do care about the students. We're taking our time to go off hours to visit these families and get to know them a little bit better. On a personal basis, these visits aren't about how the student is doing at school or any behavioral issues. It's really just show me what your child is about and tell me your hopes and your dreams for your child. Why do we do this? One of the reasons is it kind of removes that fear for the families that come to school. If they have opened their homes up to us to come to visit them, that starts to build the trust and they start to lose that fear of actually coming to school. A lot of parents maybe have had a bad experience at school in their childhood, so this starts to build that relationship a little bit more. It meets families where they're at. Not everybody's ready to come into a school, so we, find ways to visit with them in other locations. It provides a two-way communication, so it really does open up, again, it's that trust. Once they trust you enough to allow you to come into their personal space, it opens up that two-way communication, and that's really where the educational benefits begin, is when there's open communication between the school and the families. There are some requirements for the home visits. it is required that 2 staff members go, just for safety reasons. We don't want anyone to go on their own. And one of those staff members has to have gone through the home visit training, which is like a 2-day training. I don't remember how long it was. But yeah, and so only one of them has to be one of the trained staff members. Another one can just be another teacher or a paraprofessional. I know a number of our paraprofessionals have been going on the visits also. These visits can be done in the home, either in person or virtually. So if the parents don't feel comfortable having you come to their home, we can do them like through a Google Meet or a Zoom. And if they don't want even to meet in the home through virtual situation, we can meet them in the community somewhere at a neutral location, just to sit down and chat about their child. The staff do get reimbursed for their time, so we get reimbursed for the time it takes to set up the meeting, making those phone calls, driving to the location, and the time that we spend with the families, and then the small amount of paperwork that there is afterwards. It is voluntary. We are encouraging it, strongly encouraging it, because those of us that have gone on home visits recognize the benefit of it. So like we're promoting it as people that have gone, but it's not a requirement for staff or for the families. So right now we have 32 staff that are trained in the home visit program. 9 have currently participated in home visits, and of those 9, we all have talked about the benefits that we see, the changes that we see in the relationship between the families and the school. We also have a home visit committee, which 5 people are on that committee, and some from AFE, some from the middle school, some from the high school, and as representatives on that committee, then we share out to the rest of the staff and encourage the rest of the staff to participate in these home visits. Then the Family Engagement Committee is very similar to the Home Visit Committee. A lot of the same people are on it. And then we also do have one parent that is on it. He is a parent of a child with a disability. So we get that perspective when we're talking about how do we engage families in different things that we're doing at school. So there are 7 committee members there, and we meet monthly. And it's actually, we have our home visit meeting monthly, and then our family engagement meeting is right after that. So it's one long evening when we have those meetings. And we analyze the data, like who's engaging with the schools, and we talk about how we can get them to engage more.
So speaking about the data, we have been collecting some survey data. So you have a little bit of synopsis of kind of some of the surveys that we have conducted in the past year, some in the spring and some just in the fall. We did a communication survey to families to find out how they want to be communicated with, and that was done in the spring. 73 completed the survey. 7 of those people surveyed wanted to be contacted directly. So I personally called each one of them to find out exactly what they wanted to share. So got some more information, maybe more detail about some of their comments. We also had a focus group around communication, and we had 20 participants. This was done at the community center in town, and it was a wide range of participants. It had a pretty equal amount of AFE middle school and high school. Crystal Holmes and Nick Storman participated, so we did a whole group type of activity where they gave us feedback as a whole group, and then we broke up into schools and asked them specific information related to that. And then we also just conducted in November during our parent-teacher conferences another survey where 137 people participated in that. Some of the information that was told for our spring survey, that families are using the Skyward emails, the alerts like that went out today about the snow day, and social media are being used heavily. The website is not being used as much, And paper materials at AFE are being used. It's kind of difficult to send a piece of paper home with a middle school or a high school and actually get to a parent. So a lot of electronic communication is used in the upper levels. And then we also have some things like Google Messaging and Skyward Parent Portal are not being utilized as much. And so we were able to get feedback from families on that. What we are doing, we have identified that communication is very personal. So something that Tammy would like an email on, I might prefer a text message on. So we really can't just eliminate one of the ways we communicate with families because we could be taking out a big chunk of people when we're communicating. So we have to use all those modes, but teachers also need to know what each family prefers. Updating the website to make it more user-friendly, and then providing families maybe some training on the Google Classroom messaging part of it and the student portal. We also focused on two-way communication, so how families are communicating with us and how we're communicating with them. And most families that were surveyed feel that they can communicate with different staff members. They agreed or strongly agreed. 55% of the families say teachers are communicating the positives, but the biggest piece is that families want to just be communicated about their child. Positive, negatives, whatever, they want the communication, so we just need to do that. And then that personal piece, the email, the text messages, the phone calls, the meetings, teachers knowing that which one they would prefer. What we are doing with this information, we're working with staff members to develop practices around communicating with families. The middle school added Seesaw this year. That was a very popular thing on our survey that families liked. So that information, why we added that to the middle school this year. And then looking at better utilizing Skyward Gradebook, and some of the issues that they stated, families, was like grades weren't updated, things like that. So how we can make that, or it might alert them that there is a missing assignment, but it actually isn't even due yet. So some of those things the high school's working on too. In fall, we did the parent-teacher conference one, and we looked at, because there was some feedback about how we do conferences, when we do conferences, and for the majority of the families that participated, evening was overwhelmingly, everyone wanted evenings, but some people said they would prefer having some daytime conferences. So we're kind of looking at what that could look like in the future. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they had to fill in what they valued most about parent-teacher conferences, and the face-to-face, the one-on-one, they really enjoyed. And one of the things a testament to our teachers is how prepared the teachers were for the conferences was overwhelming. Like, they were like, I'm so surprised at how much my child's teacher knew about my child. So, and that was throughout the whole survey. And lastly, some improvements, because we always ask that. These were parent suggestions. Coordinating with other buildings, I'm pretty sure it's pretty difficult if you have a child in each building, and we have 2 conference nights and 1 at the high school, organizing how to get to all of them. More days being offered, they wanted. Scheduling not during games. So that might be something when we look at the calendar, if there's a way we can avoid scheduling the conferences on game nights. Longer time slots, and that's very difficult when you have a ton of students. There's a lot of information given at those, and we do encourage family, if they need longer time or want to set up another meeting, that they can with the teachers. And then better directions to navigate the buildings. That is also one of our things in the welcoming environment. It's kind of higher in our welcoming environment, that many of the families said that they can navigate the directions in the building, but on our parent-teacher conference survey, that was not the case. They said it was hard to find my child's teacher. So some suggestions were like having volunteers to kind of walk people to where they need to go even would help. Some buildings are more difficult than others. This slide that has the welcoming environment data, that's just it. Overwhelmingly, everyone strongly agreed to these items. But you will see in our next, in the not very last slide, but the second to last slide, some of the questions our family engagement group we're kind of going to grapple with this year is how can we engage the families that are not engaged? So the 137 families that participated in the survey went to conferences. So how do we get the information from families that didn't attend? Why didn't they attend? Was it the time of the day? So that's a struggle for us, and we're trying to figure out maybe personal contacts of the families that didn't come. How can we get them in our buildings and find out why they're not coming? And then how can we get feedback, or how can we provide professional development to our staff with competing initiatives? We know family engagement, we want to engage the families, but we also have other things that we want to do in our school. We have reading scores and math scores and science and all those things that we want to bring up too. So finding the time to always do those little mini professional developments around family engagement. Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we talked about in our family engagement committee was how do we engage these families that have not come to conferences? How do we get them to participate in the focus studies? We talked about maybe contacting them. If they haven't shown up for parent-teacher conferences, send a note home, a personal note, not just their report cards, but a personal note from the teacher, and possibly like a paper form of the survey, sending out a special email with a link to the survey, just contacting them one more time after conferences. And then one thing that we talked about with providing the professional development, at the middle school every Wednesday when we have our early release day and we have our PLC time, we start our PLC time with a 15-minute, we call it micro PD. And I was able to do some micro PD on the family engagement and the home visit aspect with two other people that are on our committee, to our entire middle school staff. And after that, just that 15 minutes of a snapshot of what we're all about, I had quite a few teachers coming up to me asking me for more information on it. So just we're putting out those little bits of information and hoping to draw in more of the teachers. And the more we talk about it, the more interested they are. I was sharing with Brandy, like when my very first year teaching, I made a positive phone call home, and I was so scared because you're a brand new teacher and you don't know what to expect when you call home. And I called home, and it was a student that normally was getting behavior calls home, and I called to make a positive call home. And it was such an empowering moment for the mom and for me that I thought, this is something I need to do more often. And that's how I felt after I did my first home visit. It was very empowering, like I felt so connected to that family. And so just expressing that with our other staff members is with the hope of them wanting to feel that as well. So.
And the last slide is the actual parent-teacher conference data. There is one error in the percentage for the middle school. It's that we found a little glitch in it, and it was 72.4 is the actual data. Not that one up there, but this is the data from the parent-teacher conferences. What questions do you have for me? For us?
Do we have any questions?
Very nice program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
guys.
ladies. All right. Next up is learning update report.
And I think Heather and Tricia and Crystal are all going to present together.
We have height differential here, so I'm just going to hold it. Good evening. Thank you for having us. The first thing that I want to do is just share why the three of us are here together doing this presentation. And if you go to the next slide, to slide 2, you will see a slide about how we are trying to work together around the connections that we are seeing in the direct work that we're doing, and how we just cannot be siloed in our work. And we're meeting with Tricia as our district nurse, and then Crystal as the acting director of student services, we have found that many of the things that we talk about are very similar, and yet we also have specific things within our own sort of wheelhouse of things that we deal with. But in our district, we cannot do this work in isolation. And so as we're talking about teaching and learning, I can't do that without thinking about the health needs, physical health needs, dental health needs, mental health needs of our learners, because it has such an impact on student learning. I can't do that work without thinking about the impact on students who are otherwise often underserved, students with special needs, 504 plans, et cetera. And so the three of us working together has just been incredible. I mean, I'll say this is my 34th year in education, and I've never been in a situation where I feel the connection between and among these positions, and also I've never been in a district where I think it's more important than it is here. And so that's why we're doing this together. And because none of us like standing up here alone, put it that way too. Okay, next slide, please. So we're going to talk about 3 things tonight. Oop, that went the wrong direction on the slides. Teaching and learning, the 3 pillars again, like Ms. Miner shared, staff foundations and student foundations. So I'm going to talk just briefly about teaching and learning. We have some course proposals. At the December board meeting, I shared with you that the high school had some new courses they were looking at. You'll see those on the next slide when we move to that. And per policy 2220, you do need to approve those courses. And so I believe that's later in the agenda. Am I right? Okay. So I'm going to have you go to the next slide, and then we're going to go backwards. I apologize. So the program, the full program of studies from Mr. Moore is included at that link, so anyone can get that. But the courses that are new at the high school are listed there for you. So I'll give you a second to take a look at those. And
They're in yellow, and they're down,
on the attachment, you mean?
I believe so, yeah. They're on
They
the
are.
8th page. And those are courses that are dual listed. So our students will take classes at our high school, but receive credit, as long as they get a passing grade, will receive credit at Mid-State Technical College. So this is a benefit in a number of ways for our students and families. There's a financial benefit, getting a start on college. So it's positives all around.
Okay. I'll have you go backwards again. Sorry, who's ever in the booth has to be watching. Okay, I'm going to move to staff foundations. We have a professional learning day coming up soon. So on the 17th, that's a professional development day. And as has always been true, that's the end of the semester, start of a new semester. So the focus is on our standards-based grading, standards-based reporting on that day. And I also wanted to share with you that we were just informed that Ms. Holmes and I wrote a grant to the Harju Center for Equity in Education and received that grant for $10,000 to focus on PD to meet the needs of our learners. It was for rural schools, and we feel really fortunate to have that. So we'll be starting to do some work with staff this summer on that and into next school year. So that was really exciting. And as we move to student foundations to talk about that as our pillar, I'm going to turn it over to Crystal. So if you can go to the next slide, next 2 slides, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. As Dr. Heather Terrell Stotts mentioned, we've been working in collaboration with each other recently, and we've really looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs for our students. So thinking about those base needs that we continue to talk about, food, shelter, care, but also their physical needs that they have coming to us. So we've been looking at some of the community health data as well as the student data that we receive. And you can see here that Adams County is ranked 69th out of 72 counties in overall health. So when our county pulls that data, they're looking at health outcomes, health factors, clinic care, and physical environment. When we look a little farther, we're starting to look at access for students and what does that look like for our students and families. You can see that there's a 9,000 patient difference from Adams County to the state of Wisconsin. So we're looking at 1,250 to 1 for the state of Wisconsin, 10,250 to 1 provider in Adams County for their primary care physicians. And then when we're looking at dental care, there's a 9,060 patient differential between the state and Adams County again. So needing to meet those student needs right here inside our school is a very real thing. We also took a moment to look at the Youth Risk Behavior Survey and how our high school students had reported to us on here. And we noticed that 47% of our high school students are reporting that they have less than 4 days of physical activity, which we know has a significant impact on their health. We also know that 14% of them are reporting to us that they have some form of a chronic health condition right now. As well as this information, I think it's important to note, so you see the little symbol at the bottom, Dr. Heather Terrell Stotts was able to add this for us to kind of show that collaboration and why we find this so important. We last month reported about our district report card, and we had talked a lot about the chronic absenteeism. And health is definitely going to be a contributing factor to some of that chronic absenteeism. So when we're looking at that statistic right now, we show that 26.3% of our student population has missed more than 10% of a school year. So we need to be looking at those health factors that are contributing to those barriers for our students. As well today, Dr. Heather Terrell Stotts, myself, and Michelle Allard were able to attend the Central Sands Child Care Alliance. So looking at needs for the earliest learners we have living in our community. And they did share with us that in 2020, there was a study conducted of how many students live in this district ages 0 to 5. There were 687 children ages 0 to 5 living in our community. And in 2021, they were able to identify that there was 127 regulated childcare slots open. 57 of those were through Head Start. So you can do the math there. If there's 127 slots open, that's a significant number of students that are in some type of unregulated childcare before they're entering school. With all of those 127 spots, they did note that there was only one opening for a family to enroll a child in childcare there. So after we looked at all of this data, we wanted to take a look at what are we doing inside of our district already and how can we improve. And Tricia and her team of staff have been working really hard to make different things happen. She's been able to pull some data together and we'll share it with you tonight.
So there is a lot of information on this slide that talks about numbers and percentages and things that we're seeing with our students. If you look to the previous slide, it says 14% of our AFHS students self-report a chronic health condition. But with our records, we've got 30% of our student population with an active health condition. As of the beginning of the school year, we've had 1,695 documented office visits with our health office staff. That's primarily obtained through AFE recording. We have a staff member there at all times that's able to keep accurate data of the amount of students that we're seeing. The number's probably higher throughout the district. That means at AFE and with the numbers that we have, it's 21.73 students a day that's seeing our health office staff. But out of those students, 90% of them were able to stay in school for the day. So having a proficient health service team will have a direct impact on our main student barriers with time missed from the classroom.
Our goal, obviously, is to try to keep students in school, but our health offices within each of our buildings are very busy throughout the day.
Yeah, you can see, I mean, the direct correlation that we're seeing between some of these numbers that Tricia and her team put together. I mean, it's daunting. I mean, I know some of these things, but I didn't know the numbers. And so when we started doing some digging into our district report card data and looking at the chronic absenteeism and even some of the data that Crystal was talking about with the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, all of these things have a huge impact on student learning, right? So we recognize that if kids aren't in the classroom, it's going to be really hard for them to learn. And some of the data that's there it's pretty shocking. Trisha's not going to brag about herself or her staff, so I'm going to for a moment. One of those things there that you see, the third bullet on the right, vaccination compliance rate went from 81% last year, which is quite good, to 96% this year. That is amazing, and that's because of some of the guidelines that Trisha has set forth and her staff helping to make that happen as well. Okay, we'll go to the next slide.
And it is interesting, we don't have to read this to you, but I just want to point out the number of preventive dental visits that we offer in school for our students and vision screenings, along with the Lions Clubs. They're a great partner for our vision screening processes, but just the number of students that we're serving within the school day throughout the year.
And the last slide, we just have a few reflections. And they just kind of go in order. We're not going to read those to you, but we do just want to say that sort of final sentence under number 3 there, that if we're not meeting all of these needs of our kids, then we're not meeting the needs of our kids. So we tried to bring this to you tonight in a more cohesive and connected way, and hopefully this makes sense to you. So we'll open it for questions.
I'd just like to make a comment, first of all, and we've talked about this across the district. Because of the unique needs in our community, we need to work together, not only within the district, but also with the county and other providers to try to address some of these issues. Because we know they're all very interdigitally related. Learning outcomes, student growth, student academic achievement, even getting to school is impacted by things like health-related issues, dental-related issues, mental health-related issues. We serve an extremely high percentage of students with IEPs across our district, students with disabilities, one of the highest percentage in the state of Wisconsin. And again, that brings with it a host of its own kind of issues. So we know that all these agencies, both within the school district and outside of the school district, have to work together in order to try to push back on some of the community issues that we see in our area.
Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes. Okay, now you said that there are, the survey said that there are 600 children that are 0 to 5, right? And how many slots are in the public school? And then did you say that there was 127 slots in Head Start?
That's correct. So what that data is pulling is that age 0 to 5. So that's going to be thinking about the 4K learners and younger. So we have less slots. Obviously, 4K we expanded over the last recent couple of years. And then any students that we're serving in early childhood, other than that, families are seeking some type of outside childcare facility. As you're probably aware, we do not have any child-based facilities. They're often home-based. So those regulated facilities are going to be home-based that are regulated by the state. Otherwise, there is not access. It was 126, I believe. I'd have to look at that number again.
Basically, there's hundreds of students across the county that are in need of some kind of formal child care on a daily basis.
It's a huge need for our community,
It is a huge need.
yes.
And I know that Dr. Terrell Stotts and Mrs. Holmes, I believe both of you attended a meeting today, as you mentioned, with the Central Sands Child Care Alliance. So we are trying to partner with groups like the YMCA and the county and other agencies that are trying to address just that child care need.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Director of Student Services report.
And I'm going to jump in. So this is the time of year in January, school districts have to determine the number of open enrollment slots that we have available for the next school year. And Ms. Holmes is back, so I'm going to let her take over.
I needed to switch sheets, I'm sorry. So as filling in as the Acting Director of Student Services, I was able to go through what we've had in the past for our open enrollment recommendations to the school board, as well as kind of what we would be looking at for this school year. I know the sheet you have in front of you kind of examines what we look at for special education. So we're looking at current caseloads and programming offered, but particularly just space and providing those the special education services and related services to students, and what availability would we have within our special education team. As is years in the past, we are significantly high. Approximately 26% of our student body receives special education services. So at this time, we would recommend that there are 0 special education positions open for open enrollment within our school district.
So those, again, are just spaces for students with IEPs, students we would identify as students with disabilities.
As you move to the next sheet, this is going to be students just open enrolling into our district in general, so accessing regular education services. So we projected the numbers for next school year working with the district administrative team. And then what we really took a look at was student to staff ratio. So we've had a lot of conversations about ensuring that we're keeping our class sizes smaller so that we're meeting the needs of our students. And that is how we came up with, as a team, what that would look like for open enrollment per grade level. So you can see that our youngest learners, we are looking at 0 for open enrollment there. Currently, we have 3 teachers within the 4-year-old kindergarten area. So the recommendation would be to keep those class sizes smaller for our earliest learners. Our kindergarten level, we recommended 5. That 5 would help us keep our ratio down, as would first grade. Second grade, we were at 3. So again, looking at those ratios, trying to keep them below 20. Our third grade, we did say 0. Right now, with the way we are staffed, the second graders rolling into third grade, we're approximately 23 students per teacher. So trying to keep those numbers down to 20 to keep those student to staff ratios down. Fourth grade, we recommended 3, same reason. Fifth grade, 2, sixth grade, 3, seventh grade, 5, and eighth grade, 5, again, based upon our staffing. And then at the high school level, I worked with Mr. Moore to kind of identify where he thought he would be at here, because obviously students are taking classes based upon what they're interested in and how they're kind of exploring things. So it looks a little different to gather student to staff ratios at the high school. He did feel that we could keep the numbers of 10 additional students per grade level at the high school here. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Justin?
How many open enrolled students do we have this year? Do you know?
I don't have, I can bring that for you next month. I can do in and out. I don't have that number on my fingertips.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Director of Buildings and Grounds report.
Good evening. I just wanted to provide you guys with a little bit of a snapshot of what Buildings and Grounds has been up to here. It's been a few months since I've met up with you guys. We got the first big snowfall coming up this evening. Been prepping for that equipment for quite some time. Hopefully we deal with this event without any breakdowns. These are always some of the toughest events as we're dealing with that 25 to 32 degree temperature. It's really heavy. It's always hard when we're dealing with 1-ton pickup trucks and a lot of snow, but I'm pretty confident in all of our guys getting the job done. Custodians during break were busy performing the applications of BioProtect throughout the whole district here. Another safety measure, we still have a lot of that on hand yet from the COVID pandemic. We're using that up routinely. As far as indoor air quality, we've been with the same vendor since I've been here, and I think it's been many years prior to that. We currently use 3-ply Link filters in all of our HVAC. We've been doing some testing with another company as far as bleed through. When you pull your filter out, like at your house, you look at it. If you start to see the dirt on the backside, hey, I need to change this filter. Well, a lot of times when you're seeing bleed through, those particles are already pushing through the filter. So we've got a new company that we're just doing a test with, Camfill. We've got some of these filters within the HVAC air handlers, and they're supposedly supposed to last a 12-month period without any bleed through. They've been in a couple of the air handlers now for 4 to 5 months, and I've pulled them out, and you do not see any particulates on the back side of them. So I'm confident in that. Hopefully it'll save us on energy as well as some cost savings. Once I get those numbers, we'll see if that's going to be a good transition here. Another thing we've been looking into here, which is ongoing at this time, soap upgrades. As you guys know, supplies are always raising the cost here. It's continuous by 5 to 10%. We've looked into our soap dispensers. I found a new company. They've got some disposable units, a little bit worried about vandalism, but they're going to save us nearly like $17 a case. These have been fully installed in AFE at this time. We're using up some of our current supply that we have and starting the ongoing process with the high school and with the middle school. With any time you switch out these products, you got such a large amount of money on hand already. You got to deplete that supply before we can jump into the new product. We're also testing this with toilet paper too, trying to see what the best cost is for the amount that you receive. We did recently purchase some wash stations for both AFE and the middle school. Currently, or not the middle school, AFE and the high school. Currently, they still have some older original terrazzo wash stations. They're very pitted, porous. Even though they get cleaned, they look dirty. They have touch sensors that go bad. The electronic turnstiles get twisted on them. It's been a lot of maintenance-prone problems, so we got some new stainless steel units that are on order, and looking forward to replace these internally. With that being said, too, each one of the restrooms will have an ADA compliant wash station in those restrooms. So happy about that occurring. And it should save us on maintenance issues down the road. We've got some brush hog blade repairs, a lot of tree removal scheduled with the groundskeeper and myself. If you guys notice around the district, still a lot of dead trees from that high water event that happened years ago. We're going to try to take down internally what we can, get rid of that tree brush. What we can't, or as a safety issue, we'll contract out for that. Got a couple new fire panels. One of them just arrived today for AFE, scheduling with Johnson Controls to get those installed. Fire extinguisher inspection will be going on this week as well, and the curtains to this Fine Arts are going to be flame tested here. You guys did the walk around with us today over at the greenhouse. You guys will notice the garage door seals have been replaced in that classroom, and they've been replaced in all of the tech ed rooms that have garage doors. We've had issues with the shrinking of those base plates, a lot of hornets getting brought in, as well as a lot of heat energy loss. So that work is complete. Staff has worked on a lot of vehicle and equipment repairs, tires, alignments, batteries, sensors. We were fortunate here with this weather that we've been having to get some middle school roof repairs done, just touching up on just a lot of aging of the middle school roof. Welded door frames within the middle school door H, door K, and a number of the glass windows at the middle school in our open green space and across from the library. We've had leaking, we've had welded new bracing within those areas. We'll plan on painting that with an epoxy paint once the summer comes around here. Lastly, like I said, this is just a spotlight, but we've been dealing with a lot of air handling unit motors going out. You guys can imagine 3 schools, hundreds of electrical motors. The windings go bad, the bearings go out, and I just want to praise the maintenance on keeping up with this, catching these before they become an issue where we have a whole wing without heat. They've been doing a good job. We go through a small company to try to get these motors refurbished out of Plover. If they can't refurbish them, we purchase new ones, but we try to keep at least 1 or 2 on hand. So With that, if you guys have any questions for me?
Any questions for Sean?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ringer.
All right, next up, business manager report.
All right, tonight I just wanted to give you an overview. Property tax bills were sent out in December and wanted to provide some clarification and review information that we've talked about in the last year. So with this presentation, the first screen, if we provide some context again, go back to the April 2023 referendum information. This was the financial forecast that was presented. In the very bottom, you can see I have circled what the anticipated or projected tax rate or mill rates were. So in 22-23, we knew that it was $5.33, and the projected mill rate for 23-24 was $6.58. So that was information that was out there a little less than a year ago, or a little more than a year ago. And the impact would have been about $125 per $100,000 in value. And then if we fast forward a little bit and go to slide 2, at the October budget hearing, kind of went through our 10-year history. And you'll never hear me say like your taxes are going to increase or your taxes are going to decrease, because there's a lot of factors in play. But our actual mill rate was $6.14. And again, projected during the April referendum was $6.58. And just a reminder that $6.14 from this year was the second lowest mill rate since 1984. The lowest mill rate since 1984 is right above it on that chart on the right. It was last year in 22-23. And then the next slide you've seen before too, that was in October at the budget hearing. So last year, from 21 to 22, we had a significant decrease from $7.60 to $5.33. And then we had an expected increase for 23-24, this current year, but not as high as we had thought, which is a good thing. And the last part is the equalized value, so the property values, as we've talked about that, have skyrocketed the last couple of years. And the local municipalities use that assessed value, which is determined by the Department of Revenue, to calculate property taxes. And so last year, when the mill rate for the school district's portion of the tax bill decreased immensely, if someone was reassessed, it's quite possible they didn't see as big of a decrease as somebody else. So that's a pretty big factor that we don't have any control over. And then the last screen, I showed this too in October. It's the municipality levy breakdown. And I just want to explain again the school district's role in property taxes. So step 1, we go to the bottom right corner, we set our levy, and our levy this year was $13,737,735. So we do that, step 1. Step 2 is we get the equalized values from the Department of Revenue, and if you look at the 4th column, it says 2023 equalized valuation. Those come from the Department of Revenue, and the next column over is, well, what percent of the district is that? So City of Adams, you can see the valuation for the City of Adams. They make up 4.33% of the total value of the district. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is what we basically do as a district once we have our budget hearing and tax levy meeting in October. The district essentially sends a bill to each municipality to collect the corresponding amount of the levy to the municipality's value. So for example, the City of Adams is 4.33% of our district in property value. We basically send them a bill for 4.33% of our total levy, which this year was the $595,000. So it's tough to speak on specific homeowners' taxes. Because what we do, like I said, is we send a bill to each municipality and then they distribute it amongst all of their taxpayers. So this is kind of our last step Any questions? It's complicated, but I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Little historical context too, so. Can I take questions from the crowd, or are we? Well, we can talk after, it's fine.
It's fine.
Perfect.
All right, thanks,
Thank
Brian.
you.
Thank
Ann,
you.
did you have a question?
Thanks.
Were you raising your hand? Somebody? Okay.
All right. Board of Education. Does anybody have anything this month? I just want to touch, at 6:30 we met and we went down to the ag room, toured the greenhouse updates, the new technology they have in there for controlling temperatures, humidity. I mean, great improvement for what our kids got going on. So, thank you. Nothing else? District Administrator report.
Sure, and I'm just going to piggyback on what Mr. Bay has just said. As we were leaving the greenhouse and walking down the hall, a number of the board members said it would be nice to get into other classrooms and potentially other buildings as we hold these meetings. So we're going to look at the school year, and it's hard to get students here at 6:30 if we were to meet before a board meeting, but we'll try to get some staff persons here and look at things that the board has purchased for instructional value over the last year. So things like the touchscreen boards and things like that we're utilizing in our classrooms. So we'll try to do that a few times a year. I think that's valuable. The second thing is I just wanted to mention the WIAA is continuing to look at conference realignment. It most likely will have an impact on our district over time, who is in our athletic conference. As district population changes, you'll see movement in and out of our conference. And just I want you to be aware that that's occurring and what that looks like. And finally, it is School Board Appreciation Month, and we had a little snack. Some of us started at 5:30 tonight. Before the meeting, so that was why we were a little bit late walking into the room. But I want to thank all of you for your service to the school district and the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, next up is public comments. First up is Rick Pease.
Thank you for serving. Tonight, Dr. Wormuth and the board will, after a vote, will hire and replace a large majority of the Adams Friendship School District administrative staff. These hires come with great expectations for staff, parents, taxpayers, and students. One of the expectations is retention of staff and students. Another one is to increase test scores and not just growth. And finally, the last one would be to take fiscal responsibilities for moves inside the district. Tonight, you also saw from the April referendum that next year's budget is $1.5 million in the red. Tonight, there's a whole bunch of fiscal responsibilities in the consent agenda and after that. There is a psychologist that may or may not be hired for almost $10,000 a month for 12 days of work for at least the next 5 months. There is an administrator hire that is going to make $2,867 more than the last administrator. There's a med tech on there, and all these decisions will increase that number for next year. And the last thing that's on there is the school classes that I would love my children to have when they went to school here. However, there was not a cost. You guys had asked what the cost of that was. You didn't ask what classes would be dropped or if we had to hire new people to do those classes. All those have relevance when we talk about fiscal responsibility. I think we need to ask a little bit more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Doreen Olson.
I would like to commend the current board for their composure over the past several months when former long-term board president has made negative public comments about you. As most of you know, I pulled my son from this district because I saw where it was headed under his leadership. I did not have any hope for improvement in the district. That changed a little when he was not reelected. I saw the spark, a little bit of change the district needed. He led and fostered the environment that he's currently critical of. The only time I was afforded a meeting with him and the administrator is when I called him out for treating me differently than a male parent with concerns. He stated that the board is not there to micromanage the administrator and that the school board meeting is a meeting of the school board, not with the school board. Nothing has changed from the way you do business since he has left, yet here he is complaining. This is worse than the pot calling the kettle black. He was the fire that turned the pot and the kettle black, and now he's here questioning why the kettle and the pot are black. His criticism of you is so absurd it's comical. As I stated in previous meetings, there are school boards in the state that do talk to the public during meetings. They want input and they want the public to have a voice. They want to hear from more than just the administrator. The only thing they can't do is take action. The next positive change came when the three most toxic administrators left. I do worry the culture they fostered for so long will continue. More change is needed. As I stated at previous meetings, employees don't leave a job, they leave a manager. So high turnover is a direct reflection of the leadership in a school. Recently, I heard that employees that have been with the district for 20 plus years are making the same as newly hired. When going to the administrator asking if they could get any type of increase, they were told there's no value in longevity. Most people only stay at a place of unemployment for 4 to 5 years. Essentially, they were told to leave to be valued. I want them to have a vested interest in the school and longevity to have value. But this isn't a new problem. This is one reason why the referendum had to pass. Wasn't this part of the promise? It appears that administration has had the biggest benefit from the referendum. The students, community, and employees deserve better. You are elected to lead the district, unlike past train of thought that you are here to support the administrator. Having open dialogue with the public helps hold administrators accountable, helps foster a community that is part of the school instead of separate from the schools. I do want to briefly touch on the hiring of the Director of Pupil Services. This is nothing against Mrs. Holmes. This is about the process that had the chips stacked in her favor. I would think that another candidate had more, if they had more experience or a degree in special education, that would have an advantage over a provisional license. Now, if you look at the resumes, and all the backgrounds are the same, all the candidates have provisional licenses, no one has worked in a position that would bring history and insight to the lead position, then I would wholeheartedly agree that hiring within is the right thing to do. Did knowing and working with this candidate give the interviewers a bias in making this recommendation? This position makes an unfathomable $103,000 a year. You should be certain that the person taking over this leadership position is the most qualified person that applied, not just that they meet the requirements. In closing to the board, keep making positive improvements. Hire the most qualified, think outside the box, and do what is right, not what has always been done. Be bold. Now is the time to grasp change. Thank you.
Thank you. Last up is George Goltz.
Hi, everybody. My name is George Goltz. I'm a community member here in Adams Friendship for 25 years. And I've been a school district employee as a school counselor with the district for 17 years. No longer employed with the district. But I have some insights about the district. And I want to make a few comments, and I'll keep it brief. And I also want to preface this by saying that my comments are about the hiring of a special services director. It's nothing to do with the character or the type of person that Crystal Holmes is at all. So I'm not speaking out against her in any way. Never heard anything negative about her. So I want to preface that. And I also want to say, if I make any mistakes, Dr. Wehrmuth, could you correct me and stop me from saying something that's a mistake? I'd appreciate it. So I have some concerns about the hire. And I'm speaking to you as the way that a community member would see it. I think that a lot of community members, the way they feel is that if if we were to shut down all the lights in this auditorium and have complete darkness, that's how much a lot of the community members know about the way that our school district operates and why we do what we do. And they don't know about what are good intentions and what are good decisions, and they don't know about what looks like bias or like favoritism or cronyism. So when you have a position going to a longstanding worker in the district like Crystal, it looks like favoritism or cronyism because there's some missing parts, pieces of the puzzle that aren't being addressed. Right now, my understanding is we're missing one school psychologist. And it would seem to be a benefit to me to hire a school psychologist for the position of Director of Pupil Services rather than someone that doesn't have that degree. And I did some research. I talked to one of the members of the interview committee that recommended hiring Crystal. They couldn't identify any degree that seemed to relate to this job. And to my knowledge, she doesn't have experience supervising school counselors or special education people, or supervising school psychologists or school counselors. And with a staff of at least 15, maybe with special education teachers, 20 to 25, it would seem to me to be important to have a person with that experience. So I'm not saying she's not a good fit for the district, but I'm not convinced that she's a good fit for the job. She may well be, and this is in your hands, but I want you to know that community members, when they take a look at things like this happening, like hiring new administrators with
All right,
big
George,
salary increases.
Your time's up.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep, you bet.
All right, thank you all for your comments. Moving on, do I have a consideration for closed session?
Okay, I'm sorry, I was in the wrong place.
Okay. Consideration for closed
I'll
session.
make a motion to
You want to make a motion,
go
Justin?
to closed session under section 19.85 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governing body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, to wit, contracts issued in the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? Second. Ann? I have a motion and a second to go into closed session under section 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility, to wit, contract issued in consent agenda. Do I have discussion? Seeing none, we will start this vote with Laura.
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Justin?
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Mandy?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Passes 8-0. All right, we will be back. All right, we are back in open session. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Lena?
Yes. Second.
Ann? All right, I have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. On the consent agenda is bills. We have the meeting minutes from the October 11th meeting. We have one retirement of Robert Klum. We have a resignation from Megan Rasmussen. We have a temporary staffing change for Jackie Paula.
Paula Jakacki.
Paula, okay, you got that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have some hirings. Tonight on the hirings, we have Maya Johnson, after-school teacher. Hope Wester, after-school program teacher assistant. Peter Ring, school psychologist. That's a long-term sub. Hiring recommendation for Gillian Harmeyer, after-school program teacher assistant. Hiring recommendation for Nolan Heineman, shift middle school custodian. Hiring recommendation for Crystal Holmes. Do I have discussion?
Yeah,
Justin?
so discussion, just because I've heard some confusion.
We can't hear you, Justin, I'm sorry. Pull it really close, like right in front of you.
So, some discussion, just because I've heard some confusion, and I know others on the board have as well. I wanted you to confirm that Crystal Holmes license, which is, what does it say, provisional, is a full license. It's not temporary, it's not emergency, it's a full license that will eventually be able to be a lifetime license.
Correct. There's a 3-year process before you can apply for a lifetime
I just wanted to make
license,
that
but the
clear.
requirements are met, no more classes or anything like that.
I just want to make that clear because I know there was confusion.
I did forget the halftime conference for the FFA field trip, so I did forget one thing, so. Any more discussion? Any more? All right, seeing none, we shall vote. We will start this vote with Bobby.
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Justin?
No.
Lena?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Mandy?
Yes.
Laura?
No.
And my vote is yes. Passes 6-2. Moving on. Finance Committee. We need a motion to approve the Finance Committee meetings from December 11th.
I make a motion to approve the finance meeting from December 11th.
And I'll second it.
Okay. We're just doing the minutes here. So we got Lena and Bobby. Discussion? Seeing none, we will start this vote with Ann.
Mr. Can I just, Mr. Craig, do you have anything you want to add? You moved up to the microphone.
I didn't know if anybody had questions on the motions. That's why I stepped up, just
Okay,
making sure.
I'm
If there-
sorry, and I apologize for interrupting.
I jumped the gun. I was just expecting questions. I'm sorry.
Now, we just got minutes here to take care of. Justin?
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Mandy?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
And my vote is yes, passes 8-0. Now, do we have what came out of the Finance Committee, or is that going to be on next month's?
I believe it'll be on next.
No,
month's.
we have two motions from
Okay.
December. That's why it came up. Do you want me to go through those? Jeff's not
Yes.
here, so I can go
Yes.
through those. We had, the Finance Committee had 2 recommendations. The first is a motion to approve a bid from Weir Energy Group for various LED lighting upgrades at the high school in the amount of $47,750.17.
What was that dollar figure?
$47,750.17.
Okay.
And we did, just a quick overview, we had 3 bids. This was the low bid. I don't know if anybody from the finance committee wants to add anything. It was a month ago, but
All right, do I have a motion?
I guess I have a question.
Well, let's get a motion on this. So we got Lena. And who was the second? Joni? All right, discussion?
I guess I have a procedural question because it was in the minutes, but we do not have these specific recommendations listed as action items. So I'm wondering if,
They
I
probably,
don't-
they should have been
I
active.
they should have been separate. Gotcha. So we can bring them back
yeah,
next
so
month.
I
That's fine.
don't think we're
Okay.
going to be able to hear those because they're not listed on the agenda as an action item.
Thank you,
are
Mandy.
correct.
Yep, you're correct.
Yep. So they kind of, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was enough for finance. New business. 6.1, approval of, to allow WASBA General Assembly representative to vote on the 2024 resolutions. So this is more, we just need a vote to let me vote how I feel content, or if somebody has a true feeling how we should vote, but usually I represent or vote how I feel would be beneficial to the school district. So,
I have one question.
Joni?
You are comfortable with what was in the resolutions?
Yes.
I'll second it.
All right. Well, you'll be the motion, Justin.
Oh, I'll make a motion to allow you to vote your conscience.
I'll second.
Ann? All right, I got a motion and a second. The motion is to allow WASBA General Assembly Representative Jim Bays II to vote on behalf of the Adams Friendship Area School District and his concise on the resolutions contained in the attached link. So there is a link on there that you guys can all look at. I think Tom also sent the resolutions to everybody, that if you have any questions or concerns, reach out to me. So we will start this vote with Justin.
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Mandy?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
I don't know if I personally gain from this, but I'll vote.
I don't
Yes.
think you should probably
I
vote.
won't even vote then, so I abstained. So 7-0 to 1 abstention. All right. 6.2, approval of high school program of studies.
Mr. Moore, do you want to talk about some of this? I know I mentioned some classes related to some college credit at Midstate. I know there's a piano class and a few other things that are in the document if you open it up.
So the dual credit classes in English are replacing some other English classes that haven't been as popular, but also that don't have the benefit that teaching a dual credit has. So I think we had environmental literature, British literature, those courses that would be sunsetting. This also is dependent on students registering for them. So if students don't register for speech, we won't offer a speech class. The cost for those classes would come once we know how many students registered, and we'd be using the curriculum that Midstate uses for those. The piano class would be no cost. We have the materials for that, and Mr. Randall has time in his schedule for that. So if we get students, again, if students register for it, this is just at the point of being able to offer them to students to register for. The American Government and Civics class would kind of came out of an interest area for students, but also the need to have the civics test. So students can take the civics test as a freshman, but they might need, if they don't pass that civics test, then through their freshman class, they may need to take a class that can help boost that score and make sure they pass that test, which is a graduation requirement in the state. And I can't remember, I'm blanking on the last class.
Oh, there's a journalism.
Journalism. So,
Marketing of journalism. and
Mr.
entertainment.
Blakely proposed that class, and just, to me, there won't be a cost to that one. Just curricular resources that would be chosen, but that's a class that brings writing back in an area that's not English, so that also some young men and women might like to take and be more engaged in. So to me, I see that as a benefit to our students' skills before they graduate as well. So anytime we can get students to write, I think is a benefit.
And if you go through the booklet, those classes are outlined in yellow, so they're easy to find.
So the class changes are the bulk of the change to the entire program of studies?
Yeah,
Otherwise similar?
those highlights. There's some little edits that have been made. Yep.
And we don't have any additions or subtractions at the elementary or middle school level. That's why the high school is here alone today.
All right, what is the board's pleasure on this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Justin?
Second.
And that was Joni. So I have a motion and a second to approve the 3 new classes at the high school, and they will be replacing certain classes, so there are some classes that will be leaving. Any more discussion? Anything? All right. We will start this vote with Lena,
Yes.
Joni,
Yes.
Mandy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Bobby,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Passes 8-0. Right. Moving on to 6.3, additional health service aid.
And to provide some context of this, we continue to enroll students that have more significant health-related issues that require full-time attention during the day as part of their educational plans, and are in need of this position at this time.
All right. Do I
Is
have a
this-
motion on this?
Oh, I had a question. Is this the one that is posted on weekend currently, or is this in addition to that?
I'm sorry. I didn't.
Is
Can you
it?
repeat?
Sorry,
Talk a
I
little
don't
bit,
know what
Justin.
to tell you. I couldn't hear what you said. I'm
I
sorry.
feel like this is getting awkwardly close. Is this in addition to the one that's been posted on weekend for the past few weeks, or is this that one?
It's the same.
It's that one.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. So what would the board like to do?
Do we have an estimated cost of this position, and where are we funding it from?
I don't. Do we have a salary range? Crystal, Heather, or Tricia?
I got you. Yeah,
All
so
right, thank you.
it's going to be similar to a paraprofessional. So this would be like an aide where Mandy Schwabe's an assistant. And our base pay for a paraprofessional, I believe, is $16 an hour. If they come in with experience or, some medical background, we can negotiate that. And then as far as the budget goes, this would be in addition to the budget. An annual, I think if we annualize like a paraprofessional at $16,000, it's probably around $20,000 a year in salaries, and then benefits are depending on if they take them or not.
What would the board like to do here?
So we're just basically adding one then?
Yeah, an aide.
On a position?
Yes.
You're wanting to know if we think you should add on a position?
What's that?
You're asking us if you think that we should be adding on this position?
That's what we are,
I'll make a motion to approve an additional health service aide position.
I'll second it.
okay. All right, I got a motion by Lana, second by Laura. And that is the motion to approve the additional health service aide position. Do we have discussion?
I think Crystal wants to add something if
Crystal?
possible.
One of the things that we have been looking at with this position and in other positions as well, like our paraprofessional positions, many of our students have healthcare plans, as Tricia alluded to, and meeting the students' needs with paraprofessionals isn't always necessarily working. Sometimes we need to have someone who's trained in the healthcare field. So when we're looking at those para positions, we are actually looking at those individual student needs. Is it a healthcare need for the student to access their academics? Is it behavioral? Is it an academic support that the student needs? needs. So we are looking at individual student needs. We have found that the applicants for health aides, we are having significantly more success than we had for our para positions that we had open. When we had an open para position, we had wanted to interview 9 candidates. We had 3 of the 9 show up for the interviews. This time, we've had over 45 applicants with this posting being open. So thinking about the needs of our students and making sure that we have qualified people to support their healthcare needs is something we're looking at as a whole and thinking about what that could look like as a para position as well, which we would fill based upon that student's individual need.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we will start this vote with Jody.
Yes.
Mandy?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Bobby?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Justin?
Yes.
Lena?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Passes 8-0. All right, seeing that we came to the end of the agenda, any objection to adjournment? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 8:41.